So, following on from some of my recent postings, I was asked a specific question about how to do some work for subscapularis problems. Now, it isn't unusual to find subscapularis tears in rotator cuff problems. Now, people are wondering, how do we work subscapularis since it's an internal rotator of the rotator cuff when you've got the big pecs and the big lats under there that are also internal rotators? All right, one of the ways I approach it is I use a lot of stability work. So I'm making the cuff work really as a stabiliser, and that's what the cuff is. Imagine, of course, that the cuff is actually just trying to keep the humeral head centred on the glenoid. So the major power, of course, is coming from everywhere else. It's basically an excellent stabiliser. All right, so one of the tools I tend to use is a kettlebell. Now with the kettlebell, if I'm looking at stability work, I'm going to look at bottoms up pressing. So even holding this position here is really going to work my rotator cuff. So for this is an awesome exercise, simply a bottoms up position. Now I can work that into a press if I want. Of course, the prime movers are not having to work that hard, but my stabilisers are really working hard. And that's the subscapularis, especially at this point. Now I can turn that into an internal rotation movement if I'm going to press upwards in this position, because I've got the weight here that's trying to pull me into external rotation. Now, of course, that means we're starting to recruit a bit more of the stronger internal rotators. But we'll demonstrate that in the ground in a sec. Choosing the task that you're trying to rehab is really important. So a lot of people I work with, of course, it's a bench press issue. So of course I can come to a floor press or I can sit down a bench. Once again, being bottoms up, I can simply hold this position here. I can even bring the elbow slightly off the ground so that now I'm having to stabilise my humerus quite strongly with this unstable area. All the action is really happening a lot at the hand, but a lot at the glenohumeral joint as well. And of course we can bring it into a dynamic movement. Now of course, if I'm a 200 kilo bencher, this is not a 100 kilo kettlebell. But it actually gets quite hard because I'm working my stabilisers around my cuff, which of course is my subscapularis. Now if I want to bring the kettlebell to the outside, of course what this wants to do, it wants to externally rotate me. So of course I can hold in this position here, where my internal rotators are just trying to hold me. I can of course press in this position as well, or I can simply just hold, which of course is great static work. But what if I want to increase and improve the challenge to the internal rotators? I'll use a band. All right, now I've added some internal rotation challenge. The band's trying to pull me into external rotation. So I can bring this into this position here, and right now my internal rotators are having to really stabilise the bell, but they're having to stabilise against a force that's trying to pull me into external rotation. This is fantastic subscapularis work, and I can press from here if I want to. And of course, this is really just great internal rotation control, and my cuff's really working hard. So there's a lot of ways we can work and really work subscapularis with a preference to where we are not working our pecs and lats anywhere near as hard. Hope that helps. And here we have the subscapularis. Looking at the rotator cuff now, that's the subscapularis helping to stabilise the internal rotation, and now the supraspinatus. Supraspinatus assisting with abduction, of course, there it is sitting underneath the acromion, which is where we can get impingement sometimes. Looking at the infraspinatus, which of course helps with our external rotation control, and our teres minor. So the cuff concept is that it's there for the fine control to keep the humeral head upon the glenoid perfectly centered while the major muscles are performing the major loading. That's our subscapularis that we looked at in our video. And if you have a look at, there it is, like a golf ball sitting on a golf tee. So when you think of the rotator cuff here, its job is to keep that humeral head centered on the glenoid while the powerful muscles will perform their actions and loading. Well, that's what it's about. That's why I've shown you the little hacks as how we will do some subscapularis control. And because I think it's really cool, hey, here's a skull shot. Got nothing to do with anything else, but hey, pretty freaking cool, huh? I like it.